Welcome everyone. Today's session focuses on the Autumn 24 Chief Examiner Report for the T-Level in Science, specifically the core papers A and B. So the focus of today's session is to review student performance, highlighting key strengths and gaps, and explore ways to refine teaching and delivery. This is in the context of core papers sat in December 24. Paper A explored content such as working in science sector, ethics, health and safety and scientific methods, and Paper B explored biology, chemistry, physics and applied scientific concepts. This session will explore what went well, areas for development, key patterns, teaching implications, and all supported by question level visual data. Let's begin with key themes for Core A. In Paper A, students showed encouraging progress in several areas. Firstly, we saw stronger confidence in extended responses compared to previous series, particularly in questions 6 and 10. These responses were better structured and more students attempted them rather than leaving them blank. There was also secure understanding of equality, diversity and inclusion policies, as seen in question 1. This suggests that this area is being well embedded into teaching. Another positive was the improved handling of quality control and quality assurance distinctions, especially in question 3. While not perfect, more students were able to differentiate between quality control, which happens after production, and quality assurance, which is proactive. In questions 11 and 13, students demonstrated good use of prior knowledge in PP and injury identification, showing that health and safety content is being reinforced effectively. Finally, many students gave logical answers using controlled data sources and peer-reviewed literature, as highlighted in question 8. This shows they are developing an understanding of data reliability and scientific standards. Together, these areas reflect growing confidence, especially with AO1 recall and some early steps into AO2 application. While Paper A showed some positives, there are still several areas where students continue to struggle. Firstly, there was a poor understanding of Standard Operation Procedure, or SOP. As highlighted in question 2, many students provided vague or overly broad answers, often focusing on general health and safety rather than the specific process-driven nature of SOPs. There was also a confusion between quality control and quality assurance. Students often fail to distinguish between checking after the fact and the proactive development of procedures. Error types and dilution logic, particularly in question 9, posed another challenge. Students often misidentified random versus systematic errors and misunderstood how errors can carry through serial dilutions. Extended response questions, or ERQs, like questions 6, 10 and 20, we saw inconsistent performance in evaluating scientific approaches. They often lack depth with students stating what should happen rather than analysing or critiquing the approaches. Overall, there was a weak use of AO2 and AO3 skills, application and evaluation, across many responses. This is a key area for development moving forward. This slide shows a visual breakdown of student performance across Paper A, grouped into high, moderate and low performing areas. In the green zone, where students performed well, we saw strong responses in question 1, where students demonstrated secure knowledge around quality, diversity and inclusion policies. Question 3, where many gained partial marks for distinctions between quality control and quality assurance. Question 11 and 13, with confident answers around PPE use and identifying minor injuries. Question A, Parts 2 and 3, where students effectively applied their understanding of peer-reviewed data and immediate observation. In the amber zone, performance was more variable. For example, question 6, the extended response on lab audit showed potential, but many answers lacked depth in applying and evaluating actions. Question 10, where students had to analyse bias and experimental error, was often limited to surface level points. Question 8b, which asked about long-term data backtracking saw students identifying the benefit but not expanding their reasoning for full marks. Finally, in the red zone, these are the key areas for development. Question 2, where definitions of SOPs were often vague or incorrect. Question 4a, which required understanding the importance of quality standards, was poorly answered. Question 9, which tested serial dilution knowledge, highlighted widespread misunderstanding of error types. And question 10.2, another extended response where evaluation of aseptic technique was either rushed or overly simplistic. This data can help shape planning and intervention strategies by pinpointing the specific questions and concepts that need revisiting. Looking at the overall themes for paper A, a few key trends emerge. Firstly, we've seen improvements in written responses. More students are attempting ERQs and including relevant points. However, many of these answers still lack full development. They might state a fact but not apply it, or they miss out on analysing its impact. Secondly, students struggle when asked to apply or analyse information. They tend to rely on recall, and when the question shifts into AO2 or AO3 territory, the responses become vague or generic. Another pattern is that the vocabulary and language around scientific processes are still underdeveloped. Students may understand concepts in principle, but lack the precision of language needed to express themselves clearly in exam settings. Finally, error identification and evaluation, essential in scientific work, are areas that need much more explicit teaching. Students often miss the opportunity to consider how errors affect results or how evaluations could improve procedures. These themes point towards a need for scaffolded development of AO2 and AO3, alongside stronger focus on subject-specific language and real-world context. Based on the trends, we've identified here are 5 practical suggestions to support teaching and learning for paper A. Define clear processes clearly. Students need to be confident with terms like SOPs, QA and QC. Embedding these into your teaching through glossary activities and vocabulary quizzes can help reinforce accuracy and recall. Teach error analysis practically. Concepts around error types, such as systematic versus random errors, often remain abstract. Use practical simulations and examples to classify and discuss errors in context. This can make the learning much more memorable. Support evaluation skills. This is where many students fall short in AO3. Scaffold their thinking using sentence starters, model answers, and visual aids that show how to move from explanation to evaluation. Time management for ERQs. Students sometimes rush or underdevelop responses at the end of the paper. Use time practice with real past questions to help them develop pacing strategies and ensure that they can complete all parts effectively. Integrate scenario-based SOP and quality assurance tasks. Bring the concepts to life by using lab simulations or role-play activities, where students can apply what they've learned in real-world contexts. These strategies can help bridge the gap between knowing content and applying it meaningfully in assessments. Now let's explore the key themes from Core B. Paper B highlighted a number of positive trends across the science. First, we saw strong recall and calculation skills across disciplines. Students performed particularly well in question 3, 11 and 19, demonstrating confident use of formula units and methods to reach accurate conclusions. There were also confident answers in biology, such as questions 3a and 4c, where students showed a secure understanding of cellular structures and function. In chemistry, questions 9 to 12, students handled bonding, structure and chemical calculations effectively. Likewise, physics responses in questions 17 to 18a showed students could apply key concepts like voltage and magnetism. Another strength was the clear application of terminology in microbiology and genomics. In question 2 and 6, students demonstrated familiarity with subject-specific vocabulary and applied it correctly. And finally, we saw emerging ability to evaluate scientific methods, especially in extended responses like questions 16, 21 and 24. While there's still room for development, it's encouraging to see more students moving beyond recall and starting to reason through experimental design. and implications. These are strong foundations to build on, particularly when preparing lessons for AO2 and AO3 demands in future assessments. Although Paper B showed some promising areas, there were also some clear challenges that the students encountered. One key issue was the misunderstanding of scientific language. For instance, in question 4A, several students incorrectly identified cytoplasm as an organelle, which highlights a need for more precise use of biological terms. There was also confusion in biological processes, particularly in question 5A, where many students struggled to accurately explain transcription. Some responses confused it with translation, while others included fundamental errors. When it comes to ERQs, like questions 8, 16 and 24, many students gave incomplete evaluations. Their answers often relied on basic explanation without deeper analysis or considerations of wider impacts, which limited their ability to achieve higher marks under AO3. Lastly, in questions 14 and 20, students misinterpreted graphs in scientific context. For example, some misread plateaus in reaction rate graphs or misunderstood the properties of waves and radiation, leading to incorrect conclusions. These areas show that while students are developing recall and basic application, they still need support in refining their analysis, language, and interpretation of data in scientific contexts. These slides present a breakdown of performance across Paper B, with questions grouped in high, moderate and low performing zones. In the green zone, where students performed well, question 3C showed confident handling of magnification calculations, with many students scoring full marks. Question 6, a question on genomics, was well answered, demonstrating understanding of the difference between genetics and genomics. Questions 9 to 12, covering chemical structures and equations, were consistently strong, showing accurate application of knowledge. Question 17 focused on UK mains voltage, was straightforward and widely answered correctly. And question 24, which asked about the use of radioisotopes in medical imaging, was tackled well by students who made informed comparisons and judgments. In the amber zone, performance was mixed. Question 5P asked for comparisons between DNA and RNA. Students often gained partial credit but missed full marks by not making complete comparisons. Question 18, relating to magnetism and resistance, was answered with some accuracy but revealed gaps in understanding around induced magnets. Question 24, an extended response on the plasma membrane, saw a range of responses with some good attempts at evaluation but limited contextual application. In the red zone, these are key priorities for improvement. Question 4A highlighted confusion about cytoplasm, with many students incorrectly naming it as an organelle. Question 5A, which tested knowledge of transcription, showed a lack of clarity and frequently mixing up with translation. Question 14, involving graph interpretation, was often misread, with many students misunderstanding what the data showed about reaction rates. Question 20 on wave properties revealed significant misconceptions, particularly around infrared and communication signals. And question 23, which addressed absolute zero, showed that few students fully grasped the concept, often providing vague or incorrect definition. This analysis can help shape targeted revision and lesson planning to reinforce understanding where it's most needed. From the analysis of Paper B, several key themes emerged that are useful for guiding future teaching and assessment preparation. First, evaluation remains the weakest area, particularly under AO3. Many students are able to recall and explain concepts, but when it comes to justify decisions or analysing implications, the responses often fall short. We need to explicitly teach how to evaluate in scientific contexts. Secondly, while core knowledge is growing, it is still fragile under pressure when questions are phrased in unfamiliar ways or presented within scenarios. Students can struggle to apply what they know with accuracy and confidence. On a more positive note, math is a relative strength. Students tend to perform well when they follow clear steps and include units. However, this success can drop if they don't manage rounding or forget units, so continued practice is key. Finally, application to a healthcare or scientific context is variable. Some students are starting to make good links, especially in topics like medical imaging or genomics, but in other areas they struggle to connect theory to real world. Together, these themes suggest a need for a sustained focus on scaffolding AO3, strengthening contextual understanding and reinforcing technical accuracy. So to tackle the challenges identified in Paper B, here are 4 focused teaching strategies that could support improvement. Tackle scientific misconceptions early. Use visuals, models, and analogy-based teaching to address common misunderstanding, particularly in areas like cytoplasm, wave behavior, and absolute zero. Misconception can become embedded if not actively challenged. Embed evaluation structure into lessons. AO3 continues to be a weak point, so it's essential to model what good evaluation looks like. Try using a weekly evaluate this claim activity or comparing student responses to exemplars. Build this into routine classroom practice. Bridge abstract to practical. Help students apply abstract science content like radiation, waves, and isotopes to real-life examples such as MRI scans or communication technologies. Use case studies or real hospital protocols to show the relevance. Finally, number 4, support maths consistently across all sciences. Provide equation guides, structured working examples, and peer marking tasks so students develop fluency with scientific calculations, rounding, and unit areas that gain easy marks if done well. So some final thoughts. We're just going to explore the assessment objectives pattern in a little bit more detail, and then finally some next steps. When we examine AO1, recall of knowledge, across both papers, we can see a number of recurring issues that are holding students back from higher marks. The first major pitfall is missed or vague terminology. In Paper A, we saw this in the form of unclear definitions for terms like SOPs and dilution, where students either didn't attempt to answer or gave a response that was too general to earn marks. The second issue is inaccurate recall, particularly in Paper B. Questions like these on transcription and cytoplasm highlighted confusion about foundational content. For example, students incorrectly identified cytoplasm as an organelle or mixed up transcription with translation. These gaps in AO1 suggest that students aren't always securing the building blocks of knowledge early enough to revisit them consistently throughout the year. So implications for teaching. So embed explicit vocabulary teaching. Not just definitions, but use of key terms and context, especially in practical and assessment settings. Use low-state retrieval practice regularly, such as quizzes or last lesson recall activities. Encourage students to self-check terminology using glossaries, dual coding strategies that connect visuals to key concepts. Integrate formative checkpoints in lessons to test recall and intervening early if foundational concepts haven't been grasped. Getting AO1 right is essential because it underpins everything else. Without secure recall, students will continue to struggle with application and evaluation. Looking across both Paper A and B, we can identify some consistent challenges with AO2, application of knowledge to familiar and unfamiliar scenarios. One common issue is that students are weak in applying knowledge to audit or quality control contexts. For example, they might know what quality control is, but struggle to explain how it works in a real lab scenario, or how it might be improved based on a given situation. In Paper B, the issue is often around application to healthcare-specific uses. For instance, when students are asked to connect scientific principles to MRI scans, drug trials, or hospital protocols, they often revert to generic science knowledge rather than making a clear link to healthcare settings. These challenges highlight a gap between what students know and their ability to transfer that knowledge into practical applied context. So what could you do in your teaching? Embed scenario-based learning throughout the curriculum. This might include role plays, case studies, lab simulations. Use if this, then what questioning to promote real-world thinking and encourage students to consider consequences and implication. Provide worked examples that model not just what the answer is, but how scientific knowledge is being applied to a situation. Encourage students to annotate scenarios and plan their application before writing extended answers. Stronger AO2 performance means better engagement with exam scenarios and deeper conceptual understanding. When it comes to AO3, analysis, evaluation and forming judgment, students are consistently struggling across both papers. Paper A, particularly in the extended responses around aseptic techniques or process errors, many students simply state what should happen or describe what went wrong without offering any real analysis or suggestions of wider implication. In paper B, this was also seen in longer responses, where evaluation is often replaced by descriptions. Students explain what they know but fall short of critiquing the method, assessing its reliability or justifying the reasoning. This is the biggest barrier to Band 3 performance. Students know something, but they can't yet think critically about it. Implications for teaching include explicitly teaching evaluation structure, using starters like "this is effective because," however a limitation is, or "a better alternative might be." Regularly using peer marking with model answers to help students identify the difference between description and evaluation. Building in justify your thinking prompts during class discussions, not just in writing. Using comparative evaluation tasks where students must choose between two options and justify their decision based on scientific reasoning. Improving AO3 will unlock the top marks and help learners develop the critical thinking skills that are essential in both the qualification and their future careers. So to close, let's reflect on the key takeaways from the Autumn 24 series and what they mean for our next steps in teaching and learning. First, the good news. Students are showing stronger math skills and factual recall, which gives us a solid foundation to build from. This progress is clear in calculation questions and core content across both papers. However, we still need to target terminology and process gaps, especially where definitions are vague or scientific language is misused. This can be addressed through retrieval practice, visuals and vocabulary strategies. Most importantly, we must make AO2 and AO3 our core teaching priorities moving forward. These are consistently where students underperform, particularly in extended response questions. One of the most effective ways to tackle this is by bringing science to life through case studies, simulation and practical examples. This helps learners connect theory to real-world application, making content more engaging and memorable. And finally, use the chief examiner feedback to guide your planning. Use the data and insights from this session to inform revision strategies, identify teaching focus areas, and shape formative assessment. With these focused actions, we can support students not only in passing, but in excelling. Please take a few minutes to complete this feedback form. Your insights are very valuable. Thank you very much for watching.